This is a fictional, dramatized story. Maya and Mark are not real people. This narrative is inspired by real, well-documented patterns of domestic abuse and real, known gaps in the American legal and shelter system. Any resemblance to a real case is coincidental. My name was Maya. This is not a true crime story about someone you have heard of. It is a story that could belong to any woman, in any city, in any country. I am telling it so that maybe, just maybe, one girl watching this recognizes herself in it before. I met Mark when I was 23. He was not loud or scary or obviously dangerous. He was charming. He remembered small details about me, my favorite coffee order, the name of my childhood dog, and the exact way I like to be listened to. He texted good morning every single day. He told me I was different from every woman he had dated before, that I understood him in a way no one else ever had. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. Is that not what every girl wants, to be someone's exception? Looking back now, I can see it. The very first red flag was not cruelty. It was intensity. He wanted to move fast, meet my parents within weeks, talk about marriage within months, and make plans for a future that felt thrilling but also, if I am honest, a little suffocating. At the time I called it passion. Later I would learn this has a name: love bombing. It is one of the earliest, most overlooked signs of coercive control, and almost nobody teaches young women to recognize it, because on the surface, we got married 11 months after we met. My mother had quietly asked me to wait longer. I remember telling her she just did not understand real love. I think about that conversation often now. The first year of marriage, the changes were so small I almost could not name them. Mark started asking who I was texting. Not in an angry way, in a way that sounded like concern. "I just worry about you," he would say. "I just want to know you are safe." Slowly, my phone stopped being private. Slowly, he started commenting on what I wore to work, joking that my coworkers were probably staring at me, until I started dressing differently, not for me but to avoid an argument I had not even realized I was T. Then came the money. I had a good job, a job I loved, in marketing. Mark began suggesting I did not need to work so much, that he could support us, that it would be better if he managed our finances so we could save properly. I handed him access to our joint account without thinking twice because my parents noticed before I did. My mother would call and I would rush her off the phone because Mark did not like when I spent too long talking to my family. My sister invited me to her birthday dinner and I made an excuse because the last time I had gone out without Mark, we had a 3-hour fight when I got home about who I had been talking to, what I had been wearing, and whether I still needed my old friendships now that I had a husband. Isolation from family and friends is one of the clearest in M. The first time he hit me, I remember being more confused than afraid. We had argued about something small, I do not even remember what, and his hand moved before either of us seemed to expect it. Afterward he cried. He cried harder than I did. He said he did not recognize himself, that he would never do it again, that he loved me more than anything in the world and hated himself for what he had done. He brought me flowers the next morning. He wrote me a letter. For weeks he was the man I had fallen in L. This is the cycle almost every survivor of domestic violence will tell you about, if you ever ask them. Tension builds, an incident happens, then comes the apology phase, sometimes called the honeymoon phase, and then, slowly, the tension builds again. Each cycle, the incidents got a little worse and the honeymoon phases got a little shorter. By the second year, I was not counting apologies anymore. I was counting bruises I had to explain away with long sleeves and made up stories about clumsiness. I started keeping a journal, hidden inside a shoebox at the back of my closet. I wrote down dates, what happened, and what he said afterward. Some nights, when he was asleep, I would open an anonymous TikTok account and post short, vague videos, not naming him, not naming myself, really just describing patterns. When he checks your phone and calls it love. When apologizing becomes his favorite hobby. I never expected anyone to watch them, but strangers did. Women I never met commented things like T. By the third year, I knew I needed to leave. Knowing and doing, though, are two very different things when you have no money of your own, when your family lives 2 states away, and when the person controlling you insists in his calmer moments that he will change. The first time I called a domestic violence shelter, I was told there were no beds available and to try back in a few days. This is not rare. It is one of the most under-discussed failures in the entire system. Across the country, shelters are chronically underfunded and overcrowded, And thousands of women looking for a safe place to sleep on any given night are turned away simply because there is not room. I called 4 different shelters that week. 2 never answered. 1 had a 3-way. I eventually did leave, staying with a coworker for a few nights, and I filed for a protective order. I want people to understand what a protective order actually is and is not, because I did not understand it myself until I was standing in that courtroom. A protective order is a piece of paper. It tells an abuser to stay away. It does not, on its own, physically stop anyone from doing anything. It only becomes enforceable after it has been violated, which means in practice a woman is often required to. The judge in my case did order Mark to surrender any firearms he owned. I remember feeling for the first time in years like something was finally being done to protect me. What I did not know then, what most women do not know until it is too late, is that in many states, a person is not required to surrender their firearms directly to law enforcement. They are allowed to transfer them to a friend or a family member instead. It is legal. It is called third-party transfer, and it is one of the most dangerous. I want to be honest with you about how this story ends because sugarcoating it helps no one. The protective order did not save me. The distance did not save me. The system, built with real gaps, real overcrowding, and real loopholes, failed at exactly the moments it mattered most. This is a fictional story, but I am telling it because these exact gaps, shelter shortages, the limits of protective orders, and firearm surrender loopholes are not fiction. They are real, documented, ongoing failures that put. So if you take one thing from Maya's story, let it be this. Notice the red flags early: the love bombing, the isolation from your family, the sudden control over your money, your friendships, and your phone. Do not wait for the first time he hits you to believe he is capable of it. Do not wait for the 10th apology to stop believing his tears mean change. If you are in a relationship where you feel smaller every single day, where you are editing yourself to avoid an explosion where the people who love you deserve to feel safe in your own home. You deserve a love that does not shrink you. If you or someone you know is in danger, please reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. Do not wait for tomorrow. Reach out today.